Max Keiser, this is the Keiser Report. As always, incredible things happening globally.
Bitcoin could be the new currency for global trade. Citibank says. Of course, that's Dorian Nakamoto. We often have an image of him hanging here. And this is the much talked about report out of Citibank that many academic economists were very upset with. But basically what Citibank is saying, and they're one of the biggest recipients of bailouts in American history and part of this financial system whereby, China's eating their lunch and payment system because the likes of Citibank never bothered to get out of bed. They wouldn't get out of bed for $10,000. They can't be bothered to come up with any innovations. Well, they, in a report entitled Bitcoin at the Tipping Point, it charts the evolution of Bitcoin from a form of payment to its current status as the store of value. The authors forecast that Bitcoin's core properties, combined with its global reach and neutrality, could see it morph into the currency of choice for international trade in around 7 years.
It's happening right now because the transaction is the settlement. So you don't need Citibank. It obviates Citibank. It makes Citibank redundant, as are all banks redundant with Bitcoin. I can trade with you as a currency, and it doesn't require any bank, doesn't require a central bank. And they got it a little bit reversed. They're saying it started off as a means of payment and people are looking at it as a store of value. But in fact, it started off as a store of value, and now it's morphing into a means of payment. That's the whole history of money. So Citibank should know at least the history of money and how money comes into existence. But nevertheless, a good effort. And I applaud them for at least recognizing that they're about to go out of business.
But being involved in Bitcoin early in those days, there were many participants who thought it was like, we're going to compete with PayPal. We're going to compete with Visa. It's going to be a settlements. It's going to be used as a means of exchange like that. As you point out, it was actually always a store of value. And in fact, they point out the perceptions. They say perceptions about what makes Bitcoin important continue to evolve and create new opportunities while increasing its perception towards becoming mainstream. It's becoming more mainstream because people's perceptions, i.e. the thing that the Fed, Jerome Powell, is always trying to manage perceptions, right? That's what Fed speak is all about. They go out there to speak to the market and say, don't worry, we're going to take care of inflation. Don't worry, we're not printing too much money. You might perceive it if you look over there, like at the food costs, like you might perceive it as a bad situation. But listen to me, I'm massaging your perception about the situation. Well, here the situation is being perceived as being a better store of value than the US dollar and perceived by international participants in the global market. Anybody who has anything to sell anywhere on any continent or any country on earth, they're perceiving this as a more neutral, better to use settlements layer.
Right. There's $5 trillion a day in Forex market, foreign exchange, and that can be completely replaced with a Bitcoin as the base layer. And we've seen that demonstrated now by sending currency from country to country, starting off in one currency, arriving at the destination in that local currency instantaneously, virtually at no cost.
Eric Schmidt pointed out that China, he lied a little bit, that China's only 5 years ahead of us in payment technology. In London for well over 5 years ago, you could just tap your card, instant payment. You could transfer it to somebody instantly at another bank and another bank account. Here, it takes up to 6 days to transfer from a bank account in America to another bank account.
Well, they use the Pony Express, which is, we should be feeling good about those ponies.
Right. So here, this is also the same country that oversees the global settlements layer. So everybody else in the world is already on a much faster system. And they're like, oh, now we have to go to the global part. Slow molasses, having to deal with that system. So Citi points out that the report explains that Bitcoin and the role of a global trade currency could be used by importers and exports to pay for goods and services directly, simplifying the process of international trade. A decentralized cryptocurrency may be preferred to a central bank digital currency, it argues, because no government or outside entity can take steps that might affect the supply of the trade currency, helping to decouple trade from political considerations.
Right. So they just threw the idea of central bank digital currencies under the bus. They're like, central bank digital currencies by definition are central. Therefore, they cannot compete with Bitcoin. So Citibank, again, just threw another industry under the bus.
Yeah, I mean, because of course the central bankers are going to look at this threat, the competitor, a better competitor of Bitcoin, and say, well, how do we act like them? How do we, like, maybe we just form a blockchain? That's all you need, right? That's what it's all about. But no, it's the neutrality and the permissionless nature of it, censorship resistant, because this is another thing that, as you know, whoever controls that system, and it's a dollar system right now, like, obviously they were pretty fair and open about it when they were the world, they were outcompeted everybody. When we produced all the semiconductor chips, when we produced all the cars, when we produced all the high tech. But now that other countries are way ahead of us in some aspects, we're like, well, you know what? We're going to slow your payments down. That's how we can outcompete you. We're going to make it harder for you to even trade with anybody. So this is what Citibank is saying. They're agreeing with us. Once again, Keiser report was right. Citibank was wrong until now.
Yeah, and I mean, it's remarkable that it's an indictment on the bank, their very own bank. It's like a mea culpa. It's like, you know what? We're finally going to admit something to you, everybody in the world. What we do here is redundant, slow, costly, unnecessary, and overly expensive, and a drag on the economy. And we're sorry. We're sorry. That's what Citibank is saying.
Yeah. Well, they're saying what Eric Schmidt said. It's like, we can't do it ourselves. Taxpayer, you better do something about it, or whatever.
We need another bailout. 2008 wasn't enough. Biggest bailout in history. No. We need another bailout because I have to work on my golf game. That's their pitch to America. Okay, buddy. Sure. Well, who do I write the check out to? And by the time you get it, China and the rest of the world will be another light year ahead. Well, stay tuned for the second half. Much more coming either way.